What strategies, now this is kind of a big question. What strategies can you employ to control the data storage of the memory and imagination? Define some of those terms. Some people are saying, what's data storage? How does that?
I'm setting the stage for later in the book. I get more into, officially we would call it Thomistic psychology, but understanding the human person from a Catholic perspective, and interior faculties, because this is where the battle takes place. You have the higher faculties of the intellect and the will, the lower faculties of the instincts and the passions or desires that we mortify, particularly during Lent and Ember Days. The middle faculties, the transitional or intermediate faculties, is the memory the memory and the imagination, okay, or the memory and the emotions, which comprise of the imagination. The demon has access to this is what Father Ripper calls the data set. In the first draft of the book, I was using the phrase the custody of the intellect, and he corrected me. He said, no, it's not the intellect, properly speaking, it's the mind, the pre-intellection. This is what St. Thomas would say. It's the movement of thought before you make cogitation. It's the early movements, and we call that the imagination or the mind, simply speaking, okay, broadly speaking. And so that data set is different for everyone. It's like the Betty White commercial. Betty White comes back into the huddle playing tackle football and whining, and the commercial is, you're not yourself when you're hungry, so eat a Snickers bar. So we fall back into old pattern behaviors, and the demon works to habituate us because he can manipulate the memories to evoke an emotional response in the imagination. And so this particular question is, what strategies can you employ to control the data storage of the memory and the imagination? And so you have this, because the demon knows if you were sexually abused by a guy with curly hair and Fu Man, a goatee and a purple hat and a green pickup truck and smelled like a certain cologne, all he's got to do is cycle through 2 or 3 of those elements in the same time or same day or the same person, and your memory is going to trigger that. The data set is there, and once you allow to appropriate the emotion with the memory, which is very hard to separate, the demon can now pull you down into the lower faculties, and now you're making decisions based on emotions and not on the higher faculty of reason and intellect. And so the demon habituates us. If you want to kick me in the face, you're going to set it up, right? You're going to set it up. If I want to work a certain choke maneuver on the ground, I've got to set it up and do a certain maneuver. And the demon does the same thing. He is the apex predator, and he's going to set the move up. And he does that by exploiting the weakness that humans have in the emotions. By manipulating, my data set is different than yours. There's certain things that was going to trigger my memory that weren't even going to affect you,
Dan, so the question is that I want you to answer is, what strategies can you employ to control the data storage? What strategies?
Okay, so one is the judo prayer.
Okay.
Right? The judo prayer. Lord, I'm experiencing X. It could be anything. Emotions, shame, bodily pain, whatever. If this is not from you, but is diabolic in its source, we ask you to send it back to its source with a tenfold blessing. If this is not, but if you want me to carry this cross, I willfully accept it. I ask you for the grace to carry it, and I offer it up for. So you could offer it up for the intention of the Blessed Mother. You could offer it up for the person that hurt you. You can offer it up for the person in your familial construct that needs the most prayer, or whatever. But learning to use, as the demon projects the memory in, you're learning to use it in prayer. Also, another tactic is finding somewhere on the Triduum, Holy Thursday, Good Friday, Holy Saturday, where your experience can be linked to. One year I got I went to dermatologist and burnt all the precancerous stuff on my face. I get, white skin, desert, athlete, runner. I had all kinds of stuff. So he lights my face up and burns off all this precancerous stuff. It's a terrible treatment, but it makes your baby baby skin again. So it was Ash Wednesday, and I went and saw the Carmelites had to drop something off, and I thought, well, I'm not going to embarrass myself and go in public for a few days. I'll let it heal. But I had to drop this off to the Carmelites, and so the sister that met me in the visitation room, I didn't think she'd say anything. She looked at me, she said, "Ooh, what's wrong with your face?" I was like, "Oh, yeah, I had the surgery and I had this procedure," and she goes, "Oh, it's beautiful." She said, "Now you're starting Lent. And every time you look in the mirror, you see how hideous you are. You can see all those scabs on your face, and you can think of the times when they spit in our Lord's face."
Wow.
So you start linking your own suffering to somewhere in the Triduum. Whether it's Christ being spit on, Christ being rejected, Our Lady at the foot of the cross, the loneliness of Holy Saturday, the piercing of the body, the mockery of the religious leaders, or whatever, the mockery of the bad thief, whatever you're experiencing, link it somewhere. So what it does is, as the emotion and the memory comes in, the demon manipulates your past thoughts. You now link it to the salvific, eternal redemption of Jesus Christ, right?
What page?
Movement. It's inner judo, really.
People are texting me. What page is that in your book on lesson 1?
The data story on about page 37.
Okay, people heard it, page 37.
Yeah. So another thing to do is to clear the data set out is to do sensory deprivation. If you give the demon less to work with, and so you can deprive the senses. This is what we do in Lent. So prayer, fasting, and almsgiving. Fasting isn't just from food or meat on Fridays. Fasting from this stupid thing, which we're all slaves to. Fasting, the phone. Fasting from internet. Fasting from social media. You're depriving the demon's ability to bait you through social media and all the imagery, because the demon can now manipulate and triangulate this image from this movie and this TikTok and this here, and he can start manipulating that to trigger what he knows will trigger you, which may not trigger me, but it'll trigger you and draw you down into that low emotional state, or the high emotion, and draw you into making decisions out of emotions. By sensory deprivation, you begin to work and you start to militate against the physical. You can now start working on emotional constancy, because that's critical in spiritual combat. The demon wants to draw you into a high emotionality, because in that high emotionality, he can now start to habituate your behaviors and lead you back into various forms of sin.
Dan, I think that's why in your book and in Father Ripperger's book, Deliverance Prayers for the Lady, one of the prayers I incorporated years ago into my daily prayer life because of your book and Father's book is called the protection of the faculties. I never realized how powerful that is, where you're actually asking God to protect your imagination, your memory, your mind, to daily ask him that. Then there's another prayer that you have and Father Ripperger has in the book. And it's basically, it's a prayer before you go to bed at night. To protect your
commission of body and soul. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
I do it every night.
And you listen to the language in that prayer. It's again the whole Matthew 7:7 principle: ask and you'll receive. Why is it that most people get attacked in their mind and have nightmares and have bad thoughts? They're not praying these prayers to protect their faculties or the commission of your body and soul at night. These are the prayers that are going to, again, purify your thoughts. It's going to block the diabolical. It's going to set up just basically a vanguard to protect your mind, memory, and imagination. But again, most people don't know these prayers or say these prayers. And then sometimes we even get criticized by people within our own church saying, those prayers, you shouldn't be using these prayers. Those are not part of the tradition of the church. So we even have a battle within our own clan, Dan.